Hello, children. Welcome to Draw and Paint for Life. This is week 3, and we're looking at the work of Claude Monet, the very famous French Impressionist. He was an amazing, amazing artist. And I have a little video for you to look at. I want you to notice a couple of things. There's some lessons about friendship, and there's lessons about when you think it's all over and everything is lost, you can still rally. There's lessons about bringing beauty to the world that are really important. So have a look, learn a little bit about Claude Monet, and I'll be back in a bit to talk to you again. Thank you. Have fun.
In 1914, at the age of 74, Monet was a successful and very wealthy artist. However, his friends were dying off and he was still mourning his beloved wife's death 3 years earlier when his son Jean died. Then his legendary eyesight started to fail. He should have just retired and enjoyed his old age. Instead, this was precisely when Monet decided to undertake a revolutionary new series of paintings that would become his career-defining work. Monet's last works are 8 monumental curved panels, specifically designed for the Orangerie in Paris, one of the greatest artistic achievements of early 20th century painting. They cover a staggering 200 square meters of canvas, which surround and envelop the viewer with wild gestural abstractions. Monet himself described them perfectly when he said, "It gives the illusion of an endless whole, of a wave with no horizon and no shore." We see them today, or rather experience them today, the same way viewers did in 1927, when they were installed according to Monet's plans. Monet worked closely with the architect of the 2 galleries. The paintings would be hung across the curved walls of 2 egg-shaped rooms. He meticulously planned out the forms, positioning, rhythm, and even the spaces between the various panels. They would have filtered daylight coming in from above that floods the space. The panels with sunrise hues would be positioned to the galleries in the east and the sunset scenes to the west. And so the nature of the pictures would change with the weathers and the position of the sun. In that sense, they could be considered the world's first art installation. And yet 13 years before these incredible paintings went on display, Monet had no intention of ever picking up a brush again. 40 years had passed since the notorious 1874 group exhibition, which introduced the Impressionists. The great Monet had accomplished everything he wanted to, and decided once and for all to retire his paintbrushes. He now claimed to find painting unremitting torture. Monet had had enough. Luckily for us, Georges Clemenceau visited Monet in his house in Giverny in late August 1914. Clemenceau was a newspaper editor and politician who would soon be made Prime Minister to help lead France to victory in the First World War. He was an irrepressible force of nature, an art lover and a close friend of Monet for over 30 years. They had gone from enfants terribles to grand old men, and were 2 of the most famous men in France. Clemenceau would flatter and sweet-talk the depressed Monet, coax him out of retirement and persuade him to paint again.
So what did you think of that? Weren't there some really beautiful lessons there for you about believing? And when you think, you know what, I'm going to give up, don't give up. And our friends are so important, who we choose to surround ourselves with. What a beautiful history those 2 men had. You should also know that l'Orangerie, which is the museum that houses the collection of water lilies, is a really important place in Western art, but it was kind of overlooked for a long time. So his work was not immediately well received and successful, but it became so over time. So even if you think, you know what, maybe I didn't get it right, maybe it didn't really work, be patient with yourself. So here's the thing. What is a water lily? I thought maybe we'd look a little bit at the science of water lilies. So I put together some videos for you to look at. You know, they grow up out of the ground, weave their way through water, and then sprout these like really magnificent, huge pads of aquatic life. They are considered an aquatic plant. So I put in some videos of like the flowers blooming and the leaves blooming, as well as some pictures of kids like standing on them, because the actual structure underneath is super strong, and it's been used, people have studied it in engineering to create floors. So nature is always our teacher. So let's have a look at water lilies and say, like, okay, what are we actually looking at here? And it's really fascinating the way Monet interpreted it. But let's look at the science behind it so that you can make your own interpretation of water lilies. Here we go. So what did you think of all that information? Wasn't that really amazing? In my research, I found that the structure of the water lily pad, did you see the kids sitting on the water lilies? They can hold a substantial amount of weight. And the underside of it, the way it's structured, it's kind of like these caverns. And there's this big root at the bottom. It's been used by structural engineers to create flooring. So cool. So nature is always our teacher. And I just thought I'd mention that. Art and science are often very related. So anyway, I want to take you on a little opportunity here to visualize a piece of artwork that you will create today that's important to you, your reaction, your riff off of the water lilies, okay? Because, you know, copying Monet, it's like, that's been done. What's original? What's new? What can you bring to the world? So let's start by closing our eyes. I'm going to close my eyes too. And I want you to imagine that you're in Monet's garden. And you know what? You can actually visit there. I've been there. It's quite beautiful. It's well preserved. And there are flowers everywhere. There's a river running through it, and there are water lily pads. And you're on one of those little famous Japanese bridges in that garden, crossing over it, listening to the birds, looking at the sky. Maybe it's starting to rain. And you approach the water and you're looking at the water lilies. What do you want to do? Do you want to touch them? Do you want to stand on them? Do you want to dive into the water and see that amazing underground kingdom? Are there fish there? Or do you want to fly like a bird high above the garden? What about any or all of this fascinates you? Okay. So since we have our eyes closed, we're going to take 3 deep breaths. The first breath is to be present in our body. Big deep breath. And release, and you're remembering to be present and in your power, your artistic power. And our second breath is for our heart. And we're opening that space because we make art from our heart. Big deep breath in. And release. Our third breath is to open our eyes and our visual capacity so that we can see the world differently. Big deep breath into our eyes and our brain. And release. And with the fourth breath, we're going to enter the art making place. Big deep breath in. And release. Okay. I hope you feel nice and calm, because from that beautiful calm place is where you can create your most magical work. So again, imagining you're in Monet's garden, seeing what you saw in terms of the structure and the life force energy of water lilies. What do you want to do with it? I can't wait to see. We have all the supplies here ready for you. Have a beautiful day, children. Thank you so much. See you soon.